Hi guys, my name is Kirsty. Welcome back to Upside Down Books.
Non più tra i farfalloni amorò.
Today we're going to be looking at all of the books that I read in October because somehow it is already November. I actually had a really good reading month in October, which was quite surprising considering I didn't feel like I made much of an extra effort to get more reading done, but I ended up finishing 6 books and was a good way through both the 7th and the 8th book that I was reading in the very last days of the month. It has given me great motivation to try and get through the rest of the year with a boosted motivation for reading and to see if I can really get quite a few more books done. I think I'm currently sitting at, or at the end of October I was sitting at about 47 books out of 50 for my yearly reading goal, so I'm hoping that I will definitely meet that. I'm only 1 book away from meeting it now and it's still November, so I am hoping to surpass that. I would be thrilled if I managed to make it to 60 books for this year, but I'm not going to stress. Once I hit 50 the goal is complete and I am not going to bully myself for not reading more. However, the warmer weather is around and it has arrived and it's been very, very hot the last few weeks, and that means that I will suddenly start doing more things, and Christmas is coming, so it could be a busy few months, which may mean I may find I have less time for reading, but who knows. Point is that October was a fantastic month for reading, so let's dive in and have a look at the books that I got around to. The first book that I finished reading was actually a really big book, and it doesn't really look it though, and that is Salvation by Peter F. Hamilton. Now, this book was sent to me by Pam Millen for review. They offered to send me the sequel, which is my current read, which is called Salvation Lost, and I hadn't read the first book, so they sent me the first one as well, so I could read that, catch up, and then read and review the sequel. This came out I think last year. Peter F. Hamilton, if you're not familiar with the name, if you don't read hard sci-fi, which is what this is, he's a very popular I think he's a British author, and he writes a lot of this kind of sci-fi, which is a lot of detail and a lot of actual science, and certainly a heavier read to what I would normally read. I did enjoy this one. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. I rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was expecting this to be a 4 or 5 star read, but I think just in comparison to some of the other hard sci-fis that I have been reading on Jaden's recommendations this year, this just didn't quite match up. So books like The Forever War and Childhood's End, they're just classic sci-fi novels that I guess not a lot of other books are ever going to really touch, so I started with the best and now my standards are very high. This did take me quite a while to read, and I think the sequel is also going to take me a while to read. I think I've already been chugging through it for about a week and I'm only 100 pages in, but this book is about 550 or just short of 550 pages long. I think in some editions it clips over the 600 page mark, so it is a commitment to read, but it was fascinating. It is set on Earth and it's set in the future when they have learnt to inhabit other planets, and they do lots of travelling through portals and harness energy through these portals and using suns and all sorts of fun, complex stuff like that. There's a bit of a mystery going on because there are these aliens that are present and the humans don't quite trust them yet, but they have not really got much to go on to confirm their suspicions that they may not have the best intentions. So this is a good sort of sci-fi mystery in that sense, and thank you very much Pam Macmillan for sending me this one. I'm very curious and excited to see where book 2 is going to go. The next book that I read was the audiobook that I had picked for the month, and that was Cersei by Madeline Miller. This was brilliant. I'm so glad that I read this. This was a 5-star read for me, and there was not a single moment of it that I didn't enjoy. I loved the audiobook as well. I thought that was done really well. I'm quite picky with my audiobook narrators, but I thought that whoever the lady was who did this one, I can't remember now, did a fantastic job, and Madeline Miller is obviously a brilliant author that I have been missing out on. So many people over the years have told me to read the Song of Achilles, which is her first book, or at least her most famous book that she's written, and I've just never really, I guess, truly believed just how good it would be, and I've never picked it up, but I will absolutely be picking that up probably in maybe 4 months' time. That's my rough estimation of when I might get around to that. Cersei is brilliant. It is obviously Greek mythology following the goddess Cersei and her life, and it's just, I guess, a bit more extrapolated into what happened, and a lot of it is based off what we know of the myths, and it's just really entertaining and well done. I thought it was a very different way of portraying Cersei to all the other representations of her that I've ever come across, whether it's in the Iliad or the Odyssey, or whichever one it is that she's in, or in any other book. She was a very relatable sort of character, and I feel that's more or less how my life would have gone if I was a goddess. I thought that this was just brilliant. It's not a long audiobook at all, it's very quick to get through, and I could not put it down. I got really addicted into it. I think it's really got me on a kick for audiobooks, or at least has fed on that after I listened to Jane Steele in September, and I've just had it run a good read. So this was really exciting. I can't wait to see what she writes next, because I will definitely be getting it, and if it's narrated by the same voice actor or whatever they're called, then I will be listening to it via audiobook for sure. The next book I read I do have a physical copy of, but my mum is currently reading it, so I don't have it with me, and that is The Ventriloquist by E.R. Ramsapur. This is historical fiction that was sent to me by Harlequin Australia, so thank you very much for sending me a copy of this. I did actually request this one, which is refreshing because I feel like I haven't read a review copy that I have actually really wanted and requested for quite a few months now. This book I can't stop talking about. I have put up a review, I think it was my last video, so you can go and check that out. I will leave a card above to that. This is a fantastic story set in Nazi-occupied Belgium during World War II, and it follows a really eclectic group of characters who are brought together to create a propaganda piece in a newspaper for the Nazis, and they do own a printing press themselves, and they usually create, I kind of got the idea that they created a more or less satirical sort of paper. They're all very different and bring lots of different things to the story, and it was just fantastic. It is actually quite a big book. It doesn't, well, it does look big. It was just slightly bigger than Salvation, which surprised me because it didn't feel like it was 550 pages or whatever it was when I was reading it. I was just enjoying it so much and I never wanted to put it down. So I will be keeping an eye out in future for more books written by Ramsapur because that was so good. I ended up rating this 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, in hindsight, I'm not sure why I haven't rated this 5 stars, and I may up it because of that, but right now I'm pretty happy with a really solid 4-star rating for that. So thank you very much to Harlequin for sending me a copy. The next book that I picked up was totally random, and I was just sitting in my room looking at my bookshelf and I saw The Storyteller's Daughter by Cameron Doki, which has been on my shelf for a really long time. I think it's at least 3 years, which actually, in all fairness, 3 years isn't that long compared to some of the books that have been on my shelf for over 10 years. But this is a really small book. I don't remember when I bought it. I think I bought it because it sounded interesting way back when I originally put it on a wish list or wherever it came from, and it must have gone on sale, and that's why I picked it up. And I just thought, you know what, I really want a quick and easy read, something really random, just felt like picking it up. This looks like such a cheap and tacky, like trashy book that you would just get at a train station or something, but it wasn't trashy at all to read. It was nice and easy, which was refreshing, and it is a retelling of 1001 Nights, or Arabian Nights, if you are familiar with that story. I think a lot of people, perhaps who are watching this, you may be familiar with Renee Ardier's series, The Wrath and the Dawn. Obviously this is not the first book, this is the second book. If you're familiar with this and you've read this series, then you will really like this book. If you need something to fill the void since this duology has finished, then I would definitely recommend getting yourself a copy of this really cute book. However, if you're not familiar with the story at all, then 1001 Nights is basically this prince, for whatever reasons, I've not read the original so I don't know which version is more accurate, he ends up being cursed by someone or other and will never find true love. So he ends up marrying a new woman from his kingdom every single night, and every single dawn she is executed. And Shahrazad is the main character, whose name is usually kept the same between all the different retellings. She has a great plan that she is going to volunteer, and she tells the king a story. Did I say prince before? Because he is the king. She's going to tell the king a story every night, but it's like stories within stories. It's where Aladdin comes from, and there's all sorts of other things in there, although I've never read a version where I've actually read Aladdin as one of the ones she's told him. So each night he sort of gets a story, but it links on to the overall story and it gets tied up, and then he can't execute her because he has to know what happens next, sort of thing. So it's this whole really clever plot going on. In this version she is blind, and she's the daughter of the advisor to the king, I believe. So she is within the palace this time, and it's just really good. A lot of tensions and deceiving going on and stabby plot twists. So I would recommend this as a very short 200-page read. It was brilliant. I rated this a very happy 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was another audiobook. I've really been plowing through these. I've been catching up since I finished The Fiery Cross, which was the 5th Outlander book, and I'm in this wonderful reprieve before I start any other long audiobooks, which will be happening soon. I have one lined up that's quite long. So the next book that I read was Predator's Gold by Philip Reeve, which is the sequel to Mortal Engines, which I have been really enjoying. The movie I finally watched, and I don't know whether I'm going to do a movie comparison or review because I just don't think it's worth it, but basically it was rubbish. The movie was done so badly. All the characters were super average. Hester isn't disfigured as she's supposed to be. The romance is awkward. The guy who plays Tom is ill-fitting, and the plot is so rushed that it just about doesn't make sense. Oh, and they changed the ending, of course. So wouldn't recommend watching the movie. It's really, really crap, and the book is really, really, really good. So I had finished on such a high reading Mortal Engines, and I read that via audiobook, so I wanted to continue doing the series via audiobook. The guy who narrates it, I think his name is Barnabas or something adorable like that, does a bloody fantastic job of doing voices and accents and makes it so much fun to listen to, and the sequel really lived up to it. It had a bit of an interesting ending that I thought was a bit ill-fitting, considering I would say this is more of a middle grade almost read. It's quite a young adult, and then stuff happens at the end where I'm a bit like, that was a little bit out of place. But otherwise it's more adventures with the same fun characters that we've had before, introducing other delirious characters that just make it a bit of fun. There's a character in this one who reminded me so much of Professor Lockhart from Harry Potter, so if that tickles your fancy, I can't recommend enough getting into this series because I am mad that I have only just got into it. I also rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. So that brings me to the final book that I finished in October, and that was The Warehouse by Rob Hart. Now this one was sent to me by Penguin, I believe, and unfortunately I didn't really like it, in all honesty. I have rated it 3 out of 5 stars, and again, one of these hindsight things where I'm like, I think I almost want to bump it down to 2. I did request this one specifically. I thought it sounded really good, but it just lacked oomph. This story is, I feel like, a bit of a dig at Amazon. It is obviously called The Warehouse, and it is about 2 characters who get employed by The Cloud. So The Cloud is this big monopolizing company in America specifically, and the world has sort of gone to shit, and this company owns everything. So they bought out all the farms and all of the small companies. The entrepreneurs have run out of business because of them. Small businesses are a thing of the past, and if you don't work for The Cloud, you're probably not having a good time / dying somewhere because you can't get food or shelter. So our 2 characters, for different reasons, Paxton is getting himself, he has gone for an interview to be employed at The Cloud. Obviously both of them get in, that's the story, because he tried to start up his own invention and The Cloud sort of bought him out, and he went broke and had to work in a prison as a prison guard, and he wasn't enjoying it. So he thought, hey, I'm going to join The Cloud just so that I can have accommodation, secure income, etc, etc. Then we have Zinnia, and Zinnia is actually a spy. So she is planted in The Cloud to try and work out all of its secrets, how they are successfully running such a large company, considering that their power consumption versus output doesn't match up. And so we have this whole sort of mystery thing going on. It's a really good dystopian, it's a really scary look into how big companies run and treat their employees. Having worked at Disney myself, I found this terrifyingly reminiscent of how Disney does things as well, which I probably shouldn't say, but I did. It's obviously not quite this bad, but it was just an interesting and probably far too realistic look into how some companies run their businesses. So I did think that the actual story was really good and interesting. It just got to the halfway mark and I thought, I don't think that this is actually going to end how I want it to, but the book was still good, but I was right. I got to the ending and it was not my cup of tea, the way that the author has tied off the story. I thought it would be a little bit more explosive, but it was much more of a philosophical approach to ending the series. So this could well be a great book for someone else, but this just wasn't my thing. So I probably really should rate it lower than 3 stars. But thank you, Penguin, for sending me a copy. I am devastated that this wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So those are all the books that I got around to reading in October. I had a really good reading month. I didn't despise any of the books that I read, and it has got me off on a really good start for November. We're not that far into November as I'm filming this, and I've already read 2 books, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to keep up the good reading pace, but you just never know. So I will leave this video here for today. If you've read any of these books or you're planning on reading any of these books, do let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts, but other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.